This is a review of Robert Prechter's latest book called The Socioeconomic Theory of Finance, based on Elliott Wave Theory. Now, I first became aware of Elliott Wave Theory probably mid-87, and I got this book probably late 87 or early 88, The Major Works of R. and Elliot by Robert Prechter. Now this was focused completely on the stock market, as far as I can remember. There we go, there's the index, wave principle, the financial world articles, the articles written by R. and Elliot during the 1930s, where it says 1939. And then we have Robert Prechter's interpretation of Elliott Wave Theory. All the way towards the end of the book, 240 pages, and in the last 15 or 20 pages he goes beyond Elliott Wave Theory, applying it to, for instance, emotional cycle of individuals, Pythagoras, miscellaneous. Basically is this end part, which he then expands over the next 20 years into this. Now this was again concerning applying Elliott Wave Theory to the contract note there from July 88, so that's probably early 88 when I got this book. Here's Mr. Prechter in his younger days. So this was a good book in understanding the various principles of Elliott Wave Theory, which I primarily applied to the stock market and soon found out it didn't work so well with commodities. But it did work well with the stock market. And of course I became skeptical of all technical analysis after about 5 years, but that's a different story. At that time I was into technical analysis. And this, along with Gann Letters by Lambert Gann Publishing, was my mainstay of technical analysis, and then I went on to delta waves and all the rest, the Murphy and his book. So I did do a lot of reading during the 80s and early 90s, but I've not read much in the last 10 years. Anyway, this is a review of Robert Prechter's latest book. He takes those 15 or 20 pages and expands it into a 800-page monster called The Socioeconomic Theory of Finance, which if I was starting out today, I would read this first and then this one. This is going to take you a while to get into. This, like I said, this goes beyond Elliott Wave Theory, and you really need to understand Elliott Wave Theory before you get to this. So I would still recommend getting this old book, one of Robert Prechter's earlier books, which you probably got a more recent edition, because this one was printed in, I bought it in early 88, and this was printed in March 87. So get the earlier one if you never read anything about Elliott Wave Theory before you get to this one, which is, I've skimmed through, it goes well beyond Elliott Wave Theory, deals with the, let's go through the sections. The absence of exogenous cause in the financial markets. Part 2 is socioeconomic theory. Part 3 is socioeconomic theory of finance. Then you have herding and social mood. It's basically goes well beyond Elliott Wave Theory, attempting to forecast the whole system, trying to identify and forecast the whole socioeconomic system. I've only just skimmed through it because it's 800 pages, and like I said, I don't read much these days. I've got enough of my own writing to do. I've got a backlog anyway. So part 5, and for dessert, that basically takes you on to the next section about maybe 70 pages that I'm sure is going to expand over the next 10 years into another 800-page book. So I can't, going through it, I can't see any reference to Elliott Wave Theory yet, but it will be in there. Price, earnings, news, deals with prices, earnings, news, how stories and how individuals react to new stories. Oh, you got a bit on the Charlie Hebdo attack. Basically, the mainstream media is behind the curve, and the same story can be applied to rising or falling markets. The news events, the events do not determine trends, which I acknowledge is true. News events do not, even economic data does not deliver trends. In my experience, it's sentiment, momentum and sentiment. And Robert Prechter goes deeper. He goes into a underlying structure. So this is an 800-page monster of a book, which if you want to study, because you have to really study it rather than just read it, start off with this if you have no idea what Elliott Wave Theory is about, and progress to this, which is a 20-year leap. This was Robert Prechter from the 1980s, and this is Robert Prechter from the 2017. Let's see what someone's written at the back. The Socionomic Theory of Finance is the best book ever written on financial markets. It is a humble and bold and broad and deep, crystal clear, yet mysterious. I'm tempted to start reading it. Much of it is true, I can see, because news events do not determine trends. He calls it social mood, I call it sentiment and momentum. You know, how, for instance, house prices can keep rising even though the fundamentals appear rubbish, i.e. high interest rates, falling earnings, but house prices can keep on rising for years and years because of momentum and sentiment, which is why so many bears constantly get markets wrong, which is why the stock market has risen 9 straight years when they call its end in its first year. Have been, if they don't get the importance of momentum and sentiment. That and the inflation megatrend. I don't know if Robert Prechter covers that. I know he's a deflationista. So I don't know if he covers what the latest book says about inflation. Because I acknowledge that the primary driver is the inflation megatrend, which is a consequence of government printing money. Anyway, this book is quite deep and broad, and it's something you're going to have to study each chapter one by one. If you're just starting, then I think it will be too heavy for you. You need to have a primer, and a good primer would be his earlier work, which is much easier to grasp. It deals just with the markets and earlier wave theory and sets you up for this. So there's my quick review of Robert Prechter's new book. There's a photo at the back. Doesn't seem to have changed much in 20 years. Still got a full head of hair.